Hi, I'm Samantha from Thread Collective. Today we're working on part 6 of the Weave Along series. We're actually going to start throwing the shuttle in this episode, so that's a bit exciting to finally be at this point. First, there are a couple of things I need to do, and they include finding some bobbins, sorry. And I'm going to scrounge around and see if I have a bobbin with some leftover cotton on it. If I don't, I'm just going to use some of my thicker cotton and wind a very small amount on. And the reason I'm going to do that is to weave a little bit of a header, which will eliminate this spacing that you have at the start of a warp. And the reason I want to use cotton is because this is a non-superwash wool, so it will readily felt, and I want to make sure I'm minimizing the chance for abrasion and that felting process to occur. And so cotton is just going to be so much easier to remove afterwards. So I would suggest you also use cotton as your header. Or if you have, I think some people like to use like little cardboard slats, you can do a couple of picks with that. Whatever works for you to get that spacing eliminated so that you can start weaving. The other thing I need to do, and you probably don't, is I've forgotten to take off my cloth cover on my front beam here. So I'm just going to slacken off my warp, unscrew that and remove it to the side, and then just retighten it. So it shouldn't affect my tension at all, but I will double check that just to make sure. All right, I will show you how I wind bobbins, but I won't talk you through it because I have an electric bobbin winder and I'm not sure if too many of you have that, and I suppose if you do, you may already know how to use it. But if you guys are interested, let me know and I will make a special video just for that. Okay, let's get started. Okay guys, I just wanted to show you my Shucked Spindle Company electric bobbin winder. I do apologise if I butchered the name. Obviously double-ended, so I can wind any of my bobbins or perns on it. And I've got it hooked up to a converter so I can use it with our Australian power points. So I'm winding perns because I'm using an end-feed shuttle, so this is what a pern looks like. I have the same brand open bottom end-feed shuttle design, which I just love using, so that's why I'm using it here. But you use whatever shuttle and bobbin system you have accessible to you. I just thought you would like to see what I use. So I've got like a special yarn stand that my husband made me for my birthday, but we also have like special stands in the shop. I think Ashford makes them, and they hold the cones nice and steady for me. Okay guys, we're at a loom, not the loom you were expecting, apologies. I just wanted to do a really quick run through for our table loom weavers, so feel free to skip ahead if you're not using a table loom. If you're in the camp of table loom weaving, there is a lift plan included in the pattern for you. Otherwise, you can also, if you've already put it into a weaving program or you're using the WIF, you can switch between lift plan and tie up, and that's just through pattern setup here, and you just click between use treadles or use lift plan. Sorry, it helps if I focus that for you. There you go. So hopefully you can see that relatively clearly. If it's as clear as mud, let me know and I will do some screenshots for you. So my table loom weavers, if you are in your lift plan mode or you've got the piece of paper in front of you, you're going to see a lot more numbers than a floor loom weaver. So each row is going to correspond with which shafts needed to be lifted to throw that pick. So the first pick in the pattern is 3, 4. So you count across, so this is a 16 shaft loom. So I'm finding shafts 3 and 4, and I am just pulling those down. So I've pulled 3 and 4 down, and you can see shafts 3 and 4 are raised. I would then throw my shuttle, beat, close the shed. I'll often do a secondary beat after that, depending on the warp. In this particular weaving pattern though, you're going to want it quite open. So we're weaving at 10 ends per inch for set, as well as for your picks per inch to try and get a really nice balanced weave. And then after that, so you've thrown that pick, then you're moving along to the next one, which is 1 and 4. So you pull down 1 and 4, and you can see shafts 1 and 4 are now raised. Again, same thing, throw your shuttle, beat, make sure you close that shed, you're happy with that pick where it's sitting, move on to the next one, which would then be 1, 2. So if you have any specific questions about using your table loom, let me know. I can show you on mine if there are specific points that are tricking you up. So mine's a Louette, but they're typically all very similarly built. So I'm sure I can help if needed. Okay, so let's move over to the floor loom. Okay, so we're at the correct loom now, the one that's got the warp on it. And I've just remembered I need to add some floating selvages. So I've got 2 lengths of my peacock colour, the border colour that I'm using. And I've taken a length a bit longer than the warp length because I like to have the extra length to hang off the end underweight as I get to the end of my warp, because I like to weave right up to the end. So just two generous lengths, and I'm just going to tie one on each side of my tie-up rod. So that's one, and one on the other. So a floating selvage just helps give you a tidy border without having to think too much. It does interrupt the flow of weaving a little bit, in that you have to remember kind of an over-under rhythm as you're weaving, and I'll show you guys that soon. But I really like the look it gives to fabrics, so I use them probably more than I should, to be honest, almost in every weave I do. You can sort of fuss about, and like in 2x2 trawls in particular, you can just figure out which side of the warp you need to start throwing the shuttle from, and you don't need to use one to still get a neat edge. I'm just threading in the free slot in the reed next to the last one there. Now, a floating selvage floats. It doesn't go through any heddles. So you're just passing it along. Make sure you still don't cross it over, just passing it along next to your heddles on each side. And then I'm just going to weight it off the back of my loom with a warp weight. So some people use cones or other things to weight. I'm just using a warp weight, so they both have identical weights on them, which means my tension will be the same on either side. And then with these longer bits of thread, just you can wrap them around, tie them up in little bundles, leave them loose. Up to you, whatever works for you to keep them neat and without tangling at the back. You want to suspend it. So we're going to go over the back beam. I'll just see if I can get clear visual at all, so you can kind of see how far I'm suspending it. I'll just see if I can get this to lock focus. Got my loose thread here. You just want to make sure it is going over your back beam and not touching the floor, because if it hits the floor, it will not be providing weight. The other thing to remember is with a longer warp, you will need to stop every now and then just to make sure you add a little bit of length to this so it's not getting brought over the top there. Hopefully that makes sense. So on some models of looms, you will have locking pins just to help keep your harnesses still while you're threading. Not all looms have this feature. If you're like me and you do, make sure you only release the harnesses that you've threaded for. So I'll be releasing 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'll be keeping the other ones attached to the locking pin so that they don't collapse as I weave. And that just means I didn't have to tie up, oops, kicking in things. It means I didn't have to tie up all of my treadles. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I can just slide that back into place there, and all my shafts stay where they need to. Really important you don't put sharp things on top of your loom unless you've got a really secure castle or that kind of thing. But if you've got scissors and things up here, they can actually fall quite easily through there, and on warps that are wider you may cut threads, and you don't want to do that. So first things first, I'm just going to weave my header in cotton. This is finer than I'd usually use for a header, but I just prefer not to waste yarn. It's what I had available, so it's what I'll use. I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4. See, I've got a really big, generous shed on this thing. So to get you started with practicing your floating selvages, that's those threads we added on the outside, if you choose to use them. I like to go first, draw a bit extra out than what you need. I go under and then I go over. As long as you are consistent with your choice, I would recommend just getting in the habit of always starting the same way if possible. So that's 1. And then, sorry, same thing again, under, over. Got to get used to this loom. Very beautiful, generous shed on it. Under, over. And obviously, with this particular pattern, while it will show up in my header, I'm obviously beating too hard for it to look good. So I'm also not beating to pattern at the moment. 1, 2, 3, 4 is part of the pattern, but there is more to the sequence. And you'll have noticed I'm sitting a bit higher now too. I did switch out for a proper weaving bench. So I'm at a really good height for my loom. This is the specific weaving bench for the Louette Delta. And so I've almost gotten rid of all of my gaps there already. So I can probably get started. I might just do a couple more. It's up to you where your comfort level is. Getting used to navigating these treadles. Okay, that'll do. All right, now we get to start weaving. So I'm using an MV shuttle and I need to find where I put my pen. What I'll do throughout is just switch up my weaving angle so you can get a good sense of how I personally weave, and I will talk through why I'm doing certain things as I go as well. But first we'll weave just a couple of picks and then we can hem stitch. So it's up to you how you want to finish your scarf or bandana. I'm going to have a fringe, but I'm not having a twisted fringe. So including the floating selvages, there are 255 threads. So as long as you kind of do like a factor of that, if you're just doing a loose fringe, it'll all work out evenly as you do your hem stitch. So I'm going to do bundles of 5 because I'm not doing a twisted fringe after. Hope that makes sense. So I'm sure it will when I start. Anyway, another Shuttle product. This is their Feed Shuttle. It's a really lovely lightweight one. You have, if you're choosing to hem stitch on the loom, a wool tapestry needle handy. I normally use one that's got like a bit of a curve to it, but I'm not sure where it's hiding, so this one will do. But if you can get one of the ones with the little curve, it's actually a lot easier to use. You can also opt to just pop a straight stitch through on your sewing machine after. With the fulling process, it will actually hold together really well off the loom, potentially without any further sewing, but I like my stuff to last for a really long time. So I am going to hand hem that. I've got the border done. Oh, that's the other thing. I have a tape measure handy. That's just to make sure I'm getting around 10 picks per inch. And the other way I'm going to keep myself on track is to look at the negative space as I weave, so the little holes between the interlacements of threads. They should be little squares for a balanced weave on this one. Oh, and you need your pattern. So either paper or app, up to you. I've got the app sitting next to me. So I'll just set that up actually. Normally I would use my phone, but I need it to control the camera. So I'm using the iPad. I like having a smaller device so I can sit it carefully on top of my loom, and I do keep an eye on it so it doesn't go walking along as I go. Track treadling, options. Done. All right, so first we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got my nice long tail, about 3 to 4 times the width of my weaving to do my hem stitching, and just a couple of throws. I'm going under on the first side of my floating selvage and over on the receiving side. So now I'm going under the floating selvage on this side. I just press down lightly on the edge that I'm throwing towards to catch the shuttle. So I actually beat that probably a little bit too hard for that first one. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 done. And then I'm going to take my needle and I'm, going to grab the right thread. And the end of your initial bit of yarn that you left hanging out, and thread your wool tapestry needle. Just going to take, there's a little bit of a knot at the end of this yarn and I don't want that snagging as I go, so I'll just get rid of that. And I'm going to make a little half hitch to secure this, just using the first thread only. So I'm just going under that first thread there, trying not to catch that little bit of cotton that's trying to make its way in. All right, I'm pulling snug, so that thread's nice and secure now. And then what I'm going to do is go under the first 5 threads, up through like so, wrapping around again and coming up. I'm coming up through, it's 2 threads above where I drew my yarn through before. You can go 3, you can go 4, up to you. I like 2 on a short fringe and pulling that snug. It'll probably be easier to see as I come further along here. And then we move on to the next grouping of 5. So we've got our thread sitting to the north, I suppose, away from you. And you're going to go down again, and this time you're going down in that space where your last thread kind of grouped there. So you're working on the next group of 5. Hopefully this makes sense. Wrapping underneath the next group of 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remembering this is now a group of 11 because of the floating selvage there. Coming up through that space between those threads there. So I've got 5 in the group, I've come up there, above the cotton but below the start of my weaving. Pull that through. And then you're going back down into that gap you made before where you initially started that group of 5. So you're essentially wrapping that group of 5 and then popping up again 2 threads or however many threads you've chosen to do above that group on the left there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, going under, making sure I don't catch that, coming up, pulling snug, wrapping that group of 5 by going around and coming down again, and then popping back up 2 threads above. think for this I am much better at just showing you visually than verbally explaining it, so hopefully you can get a clear enough view there. If not, you can do this again, I'm sure. One of the main things is to just be consistent with the thread height that you come up. So if you choose to go up into the space above your second thread into weaving, do that all the way along, because it does make a little bit of a space, a little gap in your work. So if you're a bit higgledy-piggledy, it'll be clear. 3, 4, 5. Be very careful to be consistent with your groups of threads as well. Just makes for a really nice finish if you can get this all consistent. Just trying to keep my hands out of the way so you can see, and my head I suppose. So going under the group of 5, popping up, wrapping back around over the top of it and down through that hole on the right, and then back up there. You can see I'm using my thread to kind of apply pressure to the warp threads, and that just makes it a lot easier to see where the path of yarn is that I'm working on, so I can easily track my gaps and things. Sure I'm not accidentally hemming in that bit of cotton too. Okay guys, super awkward angle for me to be working at, but hopefully I can get a visual for you for getting the hem stitch sorted out. After you've worked your first little just half hitch on the outside thread, you're going to be doing essentially these same movements all the way along until the end, where you'll do some more half hitches to secure your thread. You will go underneath your first 5 or your next 5 threads, or however many threads you want in your bundles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, coming up through there, pulling your needle out, hold your yarn there. You're wrapping back around, so you're going back over to the right, down through this little gap here that I've made, and then see how I'm tugging this? This has just become a habit that I do now. I tug my thread that's coming up on the left side of the bundle that I'm working with. So I can see the column where I need to be bringing my needle up. And I mentioned earlier, I'm going up into the space above the first 2 weft threads, like so. And then I'm just pulling that through and pulling snug, and that's it. So I'll do that again. So going down, so you can see now where I'm coming up, I'm going down into the space at the very bottom of my weaving with Harrisville, counting out 5 stitches very carefully, which is tricky to do in the dark thread. And that's my group of 5 that I'll be working with. So pull that snug. Then I'm going down where I originally started my little under for the group. Going down here. Bring that across so I can see easily that I'm popping up here. 2 into the space above those first 2 threads. You could choose to do 3 or 4, it's up to you. It will make a bigger window, I suppose you could call it, which can be quite a lovely design feature. So, personal preference, as is the amount of stitches you choose to keep in your groups. Whatever you choose, just be consistent. If you have to make some adjustments to get your threads to work out, try and do it evenly on each side. So it might mean you have 1 more or 1 fewer on each of your outermost groups, rather than doing it in the center. Okay, shall we do 1 more? Why not? Let's come up there. So going down here between my header and my Harrisville. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Popping up through there. Like so. Going down into that last space I made where the bundle started. So I'm just essentially wrapping up the bundle. And then coming up there. Hopefully seeing this up close is helpful visually, and you know, it can take a really long time if you don't hem stitch regularly to remember, and you may want to bookmark this section if it's unfamiliar to you, so you can come back to it if you found this part of the tutorial helpful. Okay, let's get this hem stitching finished off. Just continuing with my hem stitching. Reiterating again that how you choose to hem stitch in terms of your grouping and how high up into the warp into the weft you choose to bite into is completely up to you, and that's a stylistic choice, just as is the kind of fringe you opt for with your project. You could have a short fringe, you could have a twisted fringe, you can have a long fringe or a short fringe. You can sew your fringe and with the a machine and go for a super short one. All up to you. I must admit the twisted fringe for the Harrisville yarns looks really good, and if this was a scarf, I'd probably lean towards that. And if I make the scarf next, I will definitely be doing that. I just find it's a bit much on a bandana, especially for the purpose of this one where it's going to be on a motorbike. It's very helpful to think about the user and the practicality of the items when I'm making for someone else. All correct. Okay, so when you come to your last section, you finish much the same way you started, with a half hitch kind of thing. So just diving down to go around the group, going under those last 5 threads or however many threads you've got, making like a bit of a loop to the side and bringing the needle through that. And I do that twice. I then also weave in my end. So I just go back through. Cloth. And what I will often do, providing it's not too conspicuous, is I'll often do this in pattern too, but I don't think it'll show up too much here. I dive down through one of the groupings and I trim that off with my fringe. So just snap that one there and put my needle out of the way. Okay, and that's hem stitching done. So now to weave the body of the cloth, which is a relatively quick weave, but let's see how we go. We may not finish it all today, and then we still need to hem the other end before we cut it off. And then there's the finishing process, which is really quite important, especially with our woolen garments where we want to encourage some extra action to happen in that finishing. But we've finished our hem stitching and we're ready to keep weaving. As for advancing your warp, do it fairly regularly, especially with what you would consider a more fragile warp such as wool, because the repeated actions of the beater and the reed touching it will cause it to abrade, and abrasion can lead to snap threads. So I'm only fiddling with the, whoops, I've dropped my tape measure. I'm only fiddling with the edge because I accidentally overfilled my pen and I just had a little bit of a tension issue getting that out, but just making sure I've got a decent angle there. I will pick up my tape measure in a minute so I can keep an eye on my spacing. Just making sure I give that plenty of room to take what it wants to take. All right. Again, so dealing with some more spacing things at the moment purely because of the hem stitching, but looking at the warp threads that aren't affected by, weft and warp threads I should say, the interlacements, where they aren't so affected by the hem stitching, your clear window bits, your negative space should be square. So just keep that in mind. 3, 2, 1, 4. Just remembering over, under with your sequence. So 4 up again. Just pick that one a little bit too heavily. Three, 2, 1, 2 is the next in my series. Sorry, I do talk to myself a lot. 3, 2, 1. Checking that was definitely 1 then, yep. 2. So it's been quite a while since I've actually used a treadle floor loom, and the first time weaving on this one. I'm just going to pick up that tape measure. So I can check how I'm doing for my picks. So I also need to go back one and change my colour by the looks of it. So we're going to stop tracking, reverse. So my last two picks should have been in the other colour, so we'll do that first. Two. And one. And I will show you how to deal with this part. When you're going back, just remember you need to account for your floating selvages if you have to go in reverse, and it'll just be the opposite way to what you wove in. So being going over and under when you're unweaving instead of over under. Okay, so I need to change to my peacock colour now. So I'm just going to break my thread, like so. Take this pern out. Put my new one in. So when I have to join a new thread, I like to do it on my edges. You can also overlap in the middle if it's just purely to add in some more weft, the same colour. So what you want to do, open up the last shed of that colour. So the last shed of my grey was a 2. So when I open that up, if I'm not sure, I can give that a wiggle. If it comes away freely, I'm in the right shed. Just tap that lightly back into place there. Now, you want to wrap it around your outermost thread. So if it's sitting under the thread, you're going to go over it. If it's sitting over the thread as mine is, you're going to go under it just to help wrap it into place. So I'm going under my outermost thread, and just a couple of inches in, I'm going to pull it up. Just to recap, we did the hem stitch and we started weaving. We got a few inches in. I was a little bit concerned about my edges for part of this, but looking at it in the light of the day, they're actually pretty good. Just one very small, very slightly drawn in bit there that I don't think will be noticeable in finishing. If it was going to look noticeable, I would weave back and go again. And the reason I've got that in this bit is because I overfilled my perns and I had to deal with a little bit of a tension kerfuffle. But what I have noticed in the light of day, which is important to point out, is that now that I've started weaving, it gets really easy to spot mistakes. Less so with threading errors with this kind of colour warp, but I haven't spotted any threading error, so fingers crossed we're all good there. But I have found a slaying error, and I don't know whether it will pick up on the camera, but there is it appears a darker stripe here, purely because I have accidentally doubled up 2 threads in one of these slots. So normally I would actually completely unweave, like unweave for a precious yarn. So that's hard to find, expensive, just a yarn I would absolutely hate to waste. I don't like wasting any yarn, but some yarn I'm a bit more particular about. So I would unweave, and as I unweave, I just wind it back onto my bobbin or pern, and I would pull all the threads from the error out to the side closest to it, and I would reslay, I would retie on, I would retension. And that becomes particularly important when you're working on, say, more than one item on your loom. So if you were doing a run of a couple of bandanas or scarves, so you really don't want to carry that through on a bunch of them. This is one of the very few times I'm not actually going to fix it, and that's purely because I want you guys to see how this looks in finishing. You can see then what a difference it makes in the cloth, how noticeable it is if you've just doubled up one thread, and then if you make the same error I have, you can decide whether you mind or not keeping it in without having to redo the work if you don't mind it. I will point this out again in the finishing process. See if you can spot it, I suppose, while I'm weaving as well. I'll change the angle of the camera around and you might be able to get a good look at it, but it is trickier to see with the dark light, I'll give you that. So I've got my tape measure handy. I'm just going to double check my beat from yesterday was still good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, spot on. So I'm really looking to make sure my little see-through bits, my little windows are square, and that's really helping me get the correct beat on this. I'm going to continue weaving. As I go, I'll talk you through how I throw my shuttle and common issues that arise, particularly with selvages. Everyone always seems very, very worried about the selvages and how you can potentially fix them. So first thing first, double check this feels about the same as it did yesterday. I've just wound my warp forward a little bit more and pull up my pattern. And say, this is my first time weaving on this delta, and the treadling is so light. It is just amazing. I've accidentally doubled up a pix there, so I'm just gonna undo that. I mustn't be starting on the right one. And I'm just gonna go backwards. The one before that was 2. So if this is, so that was a 1. And I'm just gonna double check the one before that was a 2 to make sure I'm in the right spot. If I'm not, what I'm gonna do is count my picks up. Yep, sorry. Through, whoops. Still in my firmer beat habit from my last project. And then 1. And again, I've got my floating selvages, so I'm going under. Note that, hopefully you can see, I'm holding it quite gently. So I have my finger there, I have my pointer fingers there, the rest of my fingers are underneath supporting it, and my thumb is on top to help balance it. And I'm not throwing it through with particular force. I am making sure to go along my shuttle race so that I can avoid it diving, especially on this more open set. And I've pressed down my outer thread on the other side with my fingers, ready to catch that. And as I catch it, drawing it through, I do have a bit of extra length on this at the moment from undoing that last thread, gently beating it into place. And then moving on to the next pattern peak. Now, with this one, if I start getting resistance in my shuttle, there are a couple of things I can do with this one. So in this case, it's very likely just because it's wound a bit too much and it's hitting the sides there. The other thing with these M-feed shuttles is sometimes, I'll show you in here, this little bit here just needs a very small tweak with the Allen key, and that's a completely normal, expected thing every now and then, particularly if you're working on a big project, because it's got moving parts and wear and tear, and it just happens. So one thing that's really common people complain about are frowny faces. So that's when your selvages have like a bit of an angle going down. And the most common cause of that is when you're bringing your shuttle out, you are not getting a nice angle, like so, you're bringing it down. And that reduces the yarn in my shed. And then when I beat, it's drawing in the edges. And if I let that build up, it creates this big frowny face. So I'm going to undo that pick. Remember with the floating selvages to go in reverse when you're undoing something. So if I have a nice angle, there's kind of like a sweet spot on every loom where you can always get like this consistent little angle for a good couple of inches normally before you have to advance your warp. And for some, the sweet spot is a little shorter than others. Luette looms in particular seem to have very generous kind of workspace. And I've worked with some looms where I get maybe an inch before I have to advance. But they make up for it in other ways normally. So So I'm going to advance my warp a little more. And I'm just noticing I'm starting to get a little bit more of a rectangle look happening. So put that down. Again, if it was consistent and bugging me, I would go back, but I like the idea that you guys are kind of going to see it finished with some warts essentially, so you can see the consequences of not fixing things, or whether you like how it looks with the variegated density. So. So, giving this a bit of a generous advance. Maybe a little bit too generous. Let's see. That looks good there. All right, come back around. Got a little bit of an angle going on there. That's just my tie-up rod. I did not make sure it was centered to clear this part as I was going around, so that's something to be aware of as well, especially at the beginning of your warp. Just shuffling it over a bit, making sure to slide my knots so that when I get to the cloth beam here, as it starts to wind on, I'll have enough clearance. A little bit more. There we go. Oh no, dropped my tape measure. See if I can get it. There we go. All right, back in business. Okay. Let's see, we did one before, so we're up to 4. And you would have just seen me clear a sticky thread there. So another way to deal with sticky threads is to change your shed at the fell line. That's where the beater kind of meets here. And that way it does the job for you. It helps to just separate any stickiness. So that is an example. Just then you would have seen the tugging of me not having enough clearance between my pern and my shuttle. So I'm just manually tweaking it a little bit. Normally, I do not touch my edges. All right. I'm going to need to just change my settings so this stops falling to sleep on me. Display. Say 5 minutes. And that was 3, so we're moving on to 2. One. Again, you have to be very controlled with your beat in this project, because if you go hard, you are absolutely not going to get the right set. I'm just going to see if I can change the grouping of this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 next. Make it a bit quicker for me, that's all. So I normally actually weave quite a bit quicker than this, but I'm concentrating very hard on making sure I keep a relatively consistent beat. And I've also got, I've deliberately left one particularly slack one here because that'll be a really good example to show you guys in finishing, I think. It will close up a lot because we're doing some extensive fulling for this project, but it should still be quite noticeable. 3, 2, 1, 4. Oops. Okay, and then just checking my beat. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Spot on. 3, 2, 1, 2. Weaving can be a little bit forgiving, so in finishing in particular. So some tightness or looseness in the set will be eliminated as we finish. 1, 2. 3, 4, 1, 2. Now that my pern has loosened up a bit in the shuttle, you can see how easily that yarn just comes straight off. So that's that testament to having a well-wound bobbin or pern. All right, let me check this again. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. One, 3, 2. All right, I'm finding now that I'm getting a little bit closer than I'd like to be to the reed for getting the angle that I like to work with. So I'm going to advance just a little bit and then keep going. And I have some little baby birds visiting my studio you might be able to hear as well. And a little group of fairy wrens that we've been watching hatch all summer. Up to 6 babies now. But they're a little bit cranky because we chopped down one of their favourite trees. Oops. We did plant another one, but it will take time to grow. I think I've doubled up there. So just, yep. Just checking to make sure I didn't skip the early ones. 1, 2. All right, so that's where I've gone wrong. So if that's a 1, yep, I missed number 2. That would have been very obvious on a different colour combo, but obvious as you're weaving because I could see that the weft threads were going to completely line up with each other, which just wouldn't have worked. And if I didn't have floating salvages, it would have just drawn the weft straight back through. The other benefit of advancing frequently, other than minimising the risk of broken warp threads, is that it makes it a lot easier to see your work as you're weaving without having to hunch over. So it just keeps you ergonomically in a better position to keep you weaving longer. to wind another perm soon. But we are very nearly at the halfway point for the bandana. It's a very quick weave, so super gratifying and a really good gift or garment for yourself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And we're still on track with our beach. 3, 4. One. 2. And I'll just do one more repeat, one more pattern section, sorry, and then I will advance again. 3, 4, 3, 2. Okay. Okay guys, a little bit of a different angle, and just before I advance my warp a little bit more, I'm just needing to put a new pern on. So I am going to up shaft 3, if I can see it, and over. So 2 ways we can do that, so that didn't go all the way across. You can pop it up in the middle of your work, that's fine, keep your shed open, put your new bobbin or pern in, I'll do that now anyway. And you can throw bobbin across, but instead of catching it at the edge there, kind of where you've got your the thread end from the last bobbin, bring up your new bobbin end a couple of inches behind it and just gently tap it down. And that's enough to secure it into place. So I'll just show you guys how that looks. I usually weave a couple more picks before I go trimming that, if that's the join I choose to use. Okay, so you can see just there, it's only a little bit thicker. So it's a perfectly acceptable way to join this yarn in while you're working with the same color there, and that's just through the middle. The other option is you can do it over on the edges. In that case, I look at the shed I just had open, which I believe was number 3. Lift that one open, pull that one back through here. And if you guys remember from earlier, when we were joining our new color, you see where your yarn is going around that outside thread, and you take it, so you're basically just wrapping it around. So in this case, it's going over it, so I'm going to go back in under that external thread and just bring it back in a couple of inches over, tap it into place. And then, because we haven't woven this pick yet, you can take your new thread, send it through, making sure to leave a little bit out on the opposite side for you to do the exact same thing. So on that side, it is going under that outside thread. So I'm going to wrap over it, back it up through, gently tap into place. So neither option is wrong, neither option is more right. Just do whatever your preference is. So I'm just going to leave it like this because it's the joining technique I finished on. Okay, so number 4 next. Through there, and I'm going to go advance my warp again. But I'm hoping you guys can see how truly open this warp is. That should hopefully go well. You can also see really clearly where I have that doubled up thread. Hopefully that doesn't slide off. So yeah, this is a really good way to spot those little squares where my bead's not quite consistent. We've got my doubled up thread in there. This is sliding down a bit on me. Yeah, I hope you guys find that kind of view helpful. I need to get this stuff out. Advancing again. I have less than 100 picks to go. So I'm getting quite close to the end of my warp as well, because I did not leave myself much leeway intentionally, because I'm trying to figure out the maths for you guys. Make sure I've got it as conservative as possible. And advancing again. Okay. Okay, last couple of inches. I think we've got 4 or 5 to go. What have I done with my tape measure? There it is. All right. 3. So, because I'm using the app, I've got a clear indicator of when I need to change my colours. If you are not using a program to track your progress, you may wish to be counting either the amount of diamonds or just using your tape measure to get approximately the length you'd like to weave to. So I usually just have there's like a little sewing clip you can buy. I'm not sure what they're called, or you can use like a bulldog clip or anything like that just to secure your tape measure, and then just as you're going, keep track. 1, 2. Oops, a bit too firm. Just making sure my foot was on the right treadle there. I wonder if I'm going to have enough yarn on this pen to finish my peacock colour. I guess we'll find out. I am just a couple of picks short on my peacock, so I will quickly go wind a very small amount to finish off this section. Now we switch colours. All right, so because I'm switching colours, I'm going to open the last shed I was on with my colour, which was shaft 2. So you may have a better view of this at the moment. What you can do to minimise the bulge of your yarns for changing colours or changing bobbins over is open up this. I'm just going to bring this up through here. So we can essentially make this 2-ply yarn. So this is a 2-ply yarn. If it was a single, you very likely couldn't do this, but any multi-ply yarn, you can generally break it down a little bit. So what I'm going to do is just gently with my fingers, tease apart the 2 plies, like so. And I am just going to take the ply out. Don't do it too quickly because the twist will accumulate and block you from going further. And then I'm going to just break that a little bit off there and just smooth that out a little bit. Go. I'm going to pop this now single strand back into my shed, over that end like I would normally do. Just making sure that little extra bit of single ply sitting out there so I can snip it after. If I had scissors, it would be neater, but yeah. And then I'm going to wrap around. So I've come out on top of my floating selvage. So I'm going to go underneath my floating selvage, and I'm going to find where this becomes a 2-ply yarn again, and pull that back through there and snug it into place gently like so. And then that just makes it the same thickness as the yarn at every level. So this is really good if you aren't doing a lot of bobbin changes, or you've got the patience for it, I suppose, as well, or it's a really special piece. So it's just a really, really nice, neat join. Like you won't see that, especially after it's finished. So there'll be no evidence there that there was a new yarn. And I'll do the same on the other side. So I finished my peacock, and I am now going to join back on my charcoal for the last little bit. And I'm going to do a really minimal kind of join. What I mean by that is I'm going to reduce this from a 2-ply yarn down to a 1-ply yarn at the very start for the joining in. Oh, I've made some snug perns today. Leaving a generous amount for the first pass through. That's why I've just put some out there. But I'm just going to get this probably about that much. I think that might be about 20 centimeters. So this will be like the start of the colour. So what I want to do is, this Harrisville Shetland is a 2-ply yarn. So I'm just going to take some of the twist out here so I can easily get my fingers kind of in there to just gently tease the 2 strands apart. And then I am carefully working my way down, being sure that my thread has freedom to move so that the excess twist can come out of it as I run my finger through it. Otherwise, it will like jam up and it'll get snap and it just won't work. And then I'm just going to take off one of the plies from that point. And now this part is just a single ply. So what I'm going to do there, I'll do it on this side so you guys can see hopefully relatively clearly. So we open up shed 1, and I'm going to throw my shuttle across like normal. So under at that side and over at that side for my floating selvage, and I'm just pulling it through till the start of the single ply at the moment, and I'm going to tug it in a little bit further. So I want the single ply to sit in sort of at least 2 inches. I've got my single ply here. That's where it starts. And I've got my little tail here. And then it's sitting underneath the floating selvage. So what I'm going to do is take it over the floating selvage, and I'm going to bring it up. I bring it up sort of 1 or 2 threads after the single yarn starts, so in that direction. Hopefully that makes sense. Just so there's just like a little extra of an overlap. And then just gently press it into place. And then we have a beautiful start that takes up no additional space as one strand of the yarn would normally do as a 2-ply. So that's just a really nice, neat joining option. So I've shown you a couple of different ways to join in this process. So we can overlap, which works well if you're just changing the same colour. And you can do that by also reducing down to a single ply to make it even neater and visually pretty well invisible. You can do it at your edges like this one. I've left this one as your 2-ply, and you can see it's a little bit chunkier here. Or you can reduce and have your single ply one there. So I think that just about covers our common ways of sort of doing that. So let's get this finished. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4. Just making sure I've got a nice angle there. I'm not advancing my warp any further as I'm getting close to my back shafts, and I don't want those interfering with this last little bit. 3, 2, oops. 1, Last three. 3, 2, and 1. Okay, I'm hoping this gives you guys a better angle for watching the hem stitch, and you can also see again just how open this weave is at 10 by 10. Like, it's so open, but the magic is in the finishing. So I've got my tapestry needle. Again, I would prefer to be using one with a curved tip, but this is the one I have out here at the moment. So drawing my yarn through, I made that a little bit too long. All right, so first things first, we want to secure our thread. So I'm just doing, it's considered, I think it's a half hitch, so going under the very end one there, and just making sure we capture through that kind of loop that we've made by doing that. Just gives a little bit of extra security. Okay, and then you ideally want to do what you did at the start. So I am hemming in groups of 5 because I'm doing a short fringe. You might have chosen to do the maths to figure out another option that works for you if you're doing a twisted fringe or another variation. If you're doing a twisted fringe, maybe like 10 threads could be a good option, and then just making sure you cover the extra 5 threads throughout a couple of the bouts evenly to get it to look nice and even throughout. Okay, let's do this. So under the first 5 threads, bringing our needle up through there, and then going under there again, but instead of coming up through this same space here, I'm making sure to go 2, there's 1, 2 weft threads there, and I'm going through the window after the second one and bringing that up. Some people like to, I should have mentioned this, go through the loop each time just as a more decorative feature. It is up to you how you want to manage that. This is just the way I was taught and I quite like it. So my thread coming up through this little part here, and I can see it's caused a little split there anyway, to make it easy as a guide. So we're going back down through this next section here and going under the next 5 threads. So my needle there, bringing it through, and then we need to wrap over the top of that group of 5. Again, instead of coming up through this bit, we are coming up in the little window after the first 2 weft threads. Again. Just making sure I'm catching the second thread, 1, 2. And just continue doing this all the way across. Okay guys, up to the last couple of sections here with the hem stitch. So still continuing in my under 5 pattern. And then we're up to this last grip here. So we go through, but then obviously we can't come up here after we've wrapped it. So all we're going to do is like a half hitch like how we started. And I do 2 of those. So just going back up through here, making sure to catch in this kind of loop that you make. Just a little bit of extra energy from all the hem stitching, so I'll just tease that out of it. There we go. There we are. Some of those fuzzy yarns as they're getting to the end just need a little encouragement every now and then. All right, so as I did at the start of my weaving, I do like to weave back in, particularly if you're using quite contrasting colours. Try and follow the pattern of the thread, so just pick one of them, whether it's the first or the second thread, and just work. So this one, going under those two, over that one, under those two, and I'm just bringing it over to my main body of colour. Yeah, got through. And then what I like to do is just take it down as part of the fringe, or you can trim it close there. All right, we've reached the end of this part of the weaving, so hem stitch is done. I'm going to cut it off the loom, and then we're going to tidy up our loose threads. So you may have been cutting these off as you go. Just try and cut nice and close to your fabric, but be very careful not to snip your fabric if you are doing that. Well, either way, whether you're doing it now or after, do that. So what I'm going to do before I snip is get my warp plates off the back, and I'm going to put my locking pin back into place. All right, we are at the end. It's time to cut this off. So I've just taken the weights off my selvage threads so they don't crash to the ground. I'm just going to pop my locking pin back onto the shafts I use so they don't collapse as I take the tension off the warp. Okay, that's all back on. So you have two options. You can snip here, or you can snip at the back of the loom. It's up to you, and it could be dependent on how long you want your fringe. I'm doing a relatively short fringe, so I'm just going to snip it on this side, and I'm going to collect all of my thrums, my sort of waste, and pop it into a jar to use in my spinning projects. Here we go. So I'll weave this about 30 inches under tension. All right, there we are. Take that off there. Make sure it's all going to spin freely for me. And we can pull it off. There we go. You can either snip or pull your rod out. I am just going to snip because of the way I tied on. If you tie directly to here, if you can undo your knots. Otherwise just snip it too and just clear off as needed. And I will save this bit of string for future projects or to use as a measuring thread the next time I wind a warp. If you're not worried about saving your threads, feel free to snip away and vacuum up all the little bits after. I always have a good tidy up after I finish a project, but it's not finished until it's finished. I'm just going to cut these last knots here. Alrighty. Let's go get the finishing process started.